Well, good evening, everyone. I have 6 o'clock. I'd like to welcome you to the October 13th meeting of the New Bern Board of Aldermen. And tonight, prayer will be given by Alderman Odham, Jeffrey Odham.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together this evening to do the business of the city. We pray for wisdom and guidance in the decisions that we make, that it would be pleasing to you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Would you join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Bingle.
Here.
Alderwoman Harris.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Odham.
Here.
Okay, this time under requests and petitions of citizens, we have a petition from Scotty Kennedy. If you'd like to come forward.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Scott Kennedy. I live at 502 Craven. I'm 52 years old. I vote, I pay taxes, and I ride a skateboard for exercise, commuting, running errands, and recreating. Christmas time, 2017, I was riding down Mill Street in the street, and someone yells, "Hey!" And I turn, and it's a police officer, and he's like, so I turn around, come over, and he's like, "Hey, I would normally be skating with you, but situations as they are, I have to let you know that there's no skating downtown." And I told him, well, I'm going to do something about that. That was 3 years ago. The reason it's taking me so long is because I can't really talk in public, so bear with me. I'm known to stutter as well. Since visiting my parents here in New Bern and moving here, I've been stopped by the police 15 to 20 times for skating downtown, and I'm not grinding on curbs or sliding down rails or anything like that. I'm just skating down the street. And some interactions have been, positive ones, like that the gentleman that stopped me that day. And I've also been detained, sat down, and had my warrants checked and stuff like that, which is a waste of my time and theirs too. Anywho, I think that maybe you could amend the law. It's the ordinance 5026C. It shall also be unlawful to utilize self-propelled vehicles, known as skateboards, and inline skates, rollerblades on the streets and sidewalks, and other publicly owned property in the downtown area, and then the boundaries of that. When I step off my curb, if I'm pointed downtown, I'm violating the law. Anyway, I think that riding a skateboard is there's no. I have no carbon footprint, and this ordinance is under this protection of property. I'm making no impact on the streets whatsoever. With my soft wheels and whatnot. Pardon me. I think I'm more like, not just me, but the community people that do ride skateboards, because I see people every day riding their skateboards downtown. And most of the time the cops, they're not concerned with it. Whether they are or they're not, they're doing their jobs. If they stop me, they're doing their jobs. But it leads to an interaction that's not necessarily like, it's just an annoyance for both the police and for the skateboarder. We're just trying to go somewhere. And that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Davis, could you elaborate just a moment on the procedure if a citizen, just like the petition tonight, wanted to see that happen? Would you suggest a petition as a starter, a petition drive, or would I talk with the alderman, or
We
come
can
meet
do
with the
that,
manager?
and I'm going to look at the Alderman for the first ward.
Well,
we could also take
this
some-
would be citywide, I would think.
Yeah,
I mean,
I want to check the code section that the gentleman referenced. It might just limit it to downtown.
I think it does. It does.
And maybe the Alderman for the first ward and I could meet and talk about this and see what kind of impact it might have if we amended that to allow for transportation and use of a skateboard in that way, like a scooter.
I believe this was put into place prior to my entrance
It was.
into this. I'm saying
It's
it's
quite
early.
old. It's quite old.
Maybe the late 90s. It was something, and
At
I think the
least.
reason for it is because the people that were doing it were not doing it as a means of transportation. They were hopping off of like the federal building, the old post office.
Yes, ma'am.
They were
That's
on
correct.
other places, and it was damaging the
Your points.
curbs and other things within the downtown. So I believe that's why it was put into place. But certainly, as anything that we have that's an ordinance, it's always good to review and look at it and update it for what we do today. So I'm happy to do that.
So Mayor, I'll get the Alderman. We'll give some thinking.
thank you. Next petition is Mr. James Woods.
James O. Woods Jr., 1903 Country Club Road. Mr. Mayor, Board of Aldermen, good evening. I was at the last meeting and the mayor was very animate about sidewalk repair. I think to the tune of $250,000. I could be wrong on the amount. However, I've seen since then that the state has awarded the city $480,000 for sidewalks. I would like you guys to be just as animate about putting sidewalks in Pembroke, especially on Country Club. The Country Club 500 is going to get somebody killed because there are no sidewalks and people walk and ride bikes down there all the time. People coming from Trent Woods and the city do not pay the speed limit any mind. I sit on my porch any given day and I can clock people with my eyes doing anywhere between 45 and 100 miles an hour. That's on my porch. I'm not saying the chiefs is not doing their job. However, the state has awarded the city money to do sidewalks. You were animate about repairing them downtown and on National Avenue. Be it just as animate about putting them in my neighborhood, where there are none. Haven't been any. You stopped at the corner of Pembroke Road with the sidewalk. So you have some money, let's see it. And I heard that this is not the only lump sum that the city is going to be receiving on this matter. So be as animate, board, as you were about downtown and National Avenue, about putting sidewalks in the Pembroke community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, I would like for the city manager just to clarify that, because I believe that's inaccurate, and I just want to make sure we can clarify that.
Honestly,
Have we received any state
I just
funds?
look back at Matt and I'm trying to figure out the $480,000 Mr. Woods is talking about because I'm not aware of it, but if we have, but I'm happy to investigate and talk with
Please
you
do.
further.
Greenville got $1 million. Jacksonville got 900,000. We got 480,000. Now this was on the news.
I believe that might have been the CARES. That might have been
Talking
the
about CARES Act funding?
I think that might have been the CARES Act funding.
It
and
was
not-
right after the meeting about the sidewalks, because I was so upset that y'all were so angry about fixing those sidewalks, that God made a way for y'all to put them in my neighborhood.
I'm having a senior moment here. Mr. Stevens, would you please, if you don't mind, look into that, where that money's coming, so we can respond to Mr. Woods. Also, too, I want to clarify where the funding came for the other places as well. Thank you.
Okay, this time we're going to go to the consent agenda. Does any of the aldermen want to make any changes to the agenda tonight?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to pull number 4 and have that moved down to right above number 7, please.
Okay. And is that your motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to remove number 4 and have it separately considered, please.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? All opposed, same. Motion carries.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Aye. All opposed, same. The motion carries. At this time, that item, Alderman Bingham, do you want to start it off?
That's fine, Mayor. The item number 4 that we pulled from the consent agenda was to approve a proclamation memorializing Joseph J. Mattingly, who was the alderman for the 4th Ward. And really, Alderman Kinsey, you sit in that most distinguished seat right now, representing the people of the 4th Ward. I thought it was too important for us just to approve it underneath a consent agenda and really speak to it. Alderman Mattingly was a fine man who served our country, worked for the post office for many years, moved here in the 90s and wanted to serve and became an alderman here in the city of New Bern, serving for 12 years. I've never met anybody who's more gracious and more welcoming than Alderman Mattingly. He had the ability to make a friend everywhere he met. He was very instrumental in assisting myself and the mayor when we started the Firemen's Museum and reviving that program. Had it not been for him, we would have never gotten that program off the ground. He was very helpful, I know, to the fire department, always supported everything that we did at the Firemen's Museum, and again, just quite a gentleman. So I wanted to ask that we have this vote. I hope that you will make the motion. Mr. Kinsey, since he was the alderman of the 4th Ward, and I believe you came in after him. So you succeeded him, and that this proclamation is sent to his wonderful wife, Sandra, and their family. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to turn it over.
You going to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for the proclamation to the family of Joe J. Manley.
Second.
Motion and second. Under discussion, I would like to say I had the honor to serve with him for 4 years, and he was everything Alderman Bingham says, and very hard-working alderman. If you had a problem, you could be assured Mr. Mattingly was not going to let that sit on the desk. He was going to take care of it. I really had forgot, Alderman Astor, you probably remember all this as well as any being in the fire department, that the amount of work that he did on getting rid of those 2 trawlers over on Scott Creek, and that was one of them, like happens in government, it's not my problem. And Mr. Mattingly did not take that. He persevered on that with Coast Guard, the county, I think the Attorney General on up. And again, it was a really good article in the Sun Journal. Susan Mott Thomas, quite a chronicle there. And so I do remember Mr. Mattingly many times saying when things would come up that he had done, he would just say that he is the people's advocate. And that's all I think he really wanted to do, was just serve the community. So you do have that motion and second, and at this time, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. All opposed, the same. Anything else before we get into the next one?
No, thank you, Mayor.
And I would like to say before I go to this item, number 7, Jeannie Tyson has been so kind as to arrange for this tonight. I see the Director Bill McCray is here, and please, when I'm doing this, anybody that would like to come up, please come up to the podium, and any comments you'd like to make about Tryon Palace or history or whatever, please feel free to do it. Seeing that it is the COVID type of formalities, I'm going to read this from here and keep my distance, but I do want to read this, and then the clerk will hand this to you. And then, again, please make any and all comments you would like to make. this proclamation, whereas the HistoriCorps is a 501c3 nonprofit that provides a workforce of volunteers with all skill levels and hands-on experience for the purpose of preserving historic structures that have fallen into disrepair on public lands across America. And whereas the mission of the HistoriCorps is to save and sustain historic places for public benefit through partnerships that foster public involvement. It engages volunteers and provides training and education. And whereas in its first decade, HistoriCorps has logged 187,000 volunteer hours across 268 preservation projects in 31 states and territories. And New Bern has been fortunate to experience the benefits of this. And whereas the New Bern Academy was established in March of 1764, when the North Carolina legislature authorized New Bern to build a house for a school and residence for the schoolmaster. Work was begun in 1765 and was finished in 1767. And this public school quickly earned a reputation as one of the best regulated schools of its kind in America. And whereas the New Bern Academy's original building was destroyed by fire in 1795, and leaders convinced the legislature to authorize the raising of funds for a new schoolhouse, and in 1810, the Academy moved into a handsome new brick building and continued to serve as a school until 1971. And now it houses the Civil War Museum. And whereas the HistoriCorps has recognized the importance of this structure and has undertaken total restoration of the building as one of their projects, the project will include complete restoration of the brick and mortar, repair of the wooden parts of the structure, including the window sills and the entrance portico of the building itself. And the project was broken down into 3 phases, and the final phase will be completed by the end of October of this year. Now I therefore ordain Outlaw Mayor of the City of New Bern, on behalf of the New Bern Board of Aldermen, do hereby proclaim the importance and significance of the work performed by HistoriCorps and acknowledge their invaluable contribution to historical preservation in New Bern this October 13th of 2020. And so, Mr. Stevens, do you have any comments to add to that? Madam Clerk, would you?
I think, sir, the Tryon Palace have done a fantastic job. I know Ms. Tyson has reached out to me on several occasions, and we're happy to work with them in any way that we can, and happy to support their mission whatever way possible.
Bill McCrae, 1921 Spencer Avenue, New Bern. Mayor, City Alderman, I want to thank you not only on behalf of Tryon Palace and our work preserving historic structures, but for the City of New Bern. We had hoped to bid the exterior restoration of the New Bern Academy, and then this little hurricane called Florence got in the way, and contractors were very scarce. But it was a project that was near and dear to the donors who contributed to this project, and important for Tryon Palace. And fortunately, I was able to get up with Jason Whitehead at HistoriCorps, and they agreed to take this on as a project. Because they work with a lot of volunteers in a training modality, we had to spread the work out over 3 phases. But I'm very happy that Jason and his crew are here in October and are working on the cupola, which is the last phase of the restoration. And then Jeannie Tyson and I are going to celebrate when this exterior restoration is done. So on behalf of Tryon Palace and HistoriCorps, the Tryon Palace Foundation, I thank you for recognizing this important work.
Thank you.
So I'm Jason Whitehead with HistoriCorps. I'm the Director of Operations. Live outside of Richmond, Virginia, and our main office is based in Colorado. But it has been my honor and pleasure to work with Tryon Palace, the Tryon Palace Foundation, and just be able to come down to New Bern and engage with the citizens and the community, the restaurants, the campgrounds. And I think, what I really love about this project is it has involved sort of everything that HistoriCorps does from an education standpoint. We've worked with volunteers. We've had volunteers who have come to work on the New Bern Academy from Pennsylvania, from Colorado, from literally all over the country. We've also been able to engage youth in training through the Conservation Corps of North Carolina. So we brought in both this project and the second phase, which was a year ago. We were able to work with them and teach them career building skills in historic preservation that they may not have had any access to otherwise. So on behalf of HistoriCorps, thank you for having us and hosting us, and we look forward to continuing with future projects in New Bern in this area. So thank you.
Mayor, I have
Is
a
this some of your
project.
staff?
I was going to say, before he leaves, I have a question for him. Sir, thank you so much. We appreciate what you're doing. But what you're standing in right now is another one of New Bern's most historic structures. The City Hall was originally built as the post office. And in the early 1900s, the city of New Bern came in. We put the clock tower. It's beautiful, and it needs help. Would HistoriCorps be willing to take this on, because we are looking for that opportunity? As you can see, we have cracking walls, we have plaster that needs to be replaced. This is a gem, and I've been searching, looking for assistance. The mayor's been so kind as to name me the historian for City Hall and for the city of New Bern, and I would really appreciate if you would contact us, and maybe this could be your next project, because this building deserves that love and attention that you so graciously gave to the Academy. So we would love to have you work with us as well. Sorry, Mayor, but I had to get my plug in.
Yeah, sure.
Is this some of your staff that's sitting out here?
No. They're back in the
Okay.
campground now.
Okay.
I would like to just say a few minutes, Mayor, Alderman. I would like to thank y'all for this proclamation. So many times we go through our life day by day complaining and arguing about people or things. We very rarely thank people for what they do or give them compliments. So I would like to thank HistoriCorps for what they are doing. We are so fortunate in the city of New Bern right here to have the most historic and premier site in the entire state, and among that is the Academy building. And we struggle at the Palace to try to preserve what we can and to do the best we can in spite of storms that come our way, or financial crisis, or pandemic. So we continue to work hard to keep this building up. But thank you for the proclamation, because they certainly deserve a pat on the back. Thanks.
He'll make sure I have his information so I can contact him. We're in town for a little bit. Okay. We're going to be new best friends. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stevens, let's go to item number 8.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 8 is it's that time of year again where Chip Chagnon comes, and he's the chairman of a Craven County ABC board. He usually comes bearing money, which we always enjoy, but he also is here to basically give us an update on the ABC of Craven County and the stores and their sales, and provide us their annual briefing regarding their activities throughout the year. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Chip.
Well, it's always a great moment when you get to come down to New Bern, the mother city of the world. I went to the other New Bern, and I told them that. I said, it's nice to come to Bern, Switzerland, but I said, it's really nice to go to the real Bern in New Bern. And they laughed. The mayor there knows very well about the city. But it's wonderful to come and visit you and talk to you about a little bit about the ABC board as it applies to New Bern. One of the good things about our form of alcohol and control in North Carolina is that the cities and the counties are equal partners with the state. We're the only ones, by the way, out of the 17 that do have that, and we are the only ones out of the 17 that do give money back to the towns and cities in which we reside. So here we are. there's our mission statement, and it's pretty solid, and we take a lot of pride in the fact that we talk about sale of liquor, but promoting a customer-friendly, safe, modern, and efficient store. We understand that we're in a city in which we have tourists and visitors, and we're very, very sensitive to that issue. So we keep our stores, particularly downtown store and the Glen Burnie store, out of our stores. We do a lot of investment, as you'll see, because we want to ensure that they are friendly and that they are attractive. That's our point in New Bern, making our stores attractive. And so we do our best, and the folks that help me on this, you'll notice that we have a new name up there, and that's Mr. Buka. The Board of Commissioners put a member on the board this year. That's not totally unusual. I always tell them, is that a reflection on my poor chairmanship? But no, Mr. Mark said, no, we have Mr. Booker, and if there's anybody that knows the city of New Bern, it's Denny. He represents you very well. I asked each member of the board to pick out a store and an area to represent, and Denny has James City and the downtown store. I have the Vanceboro store, and then our other members have the other stores. So there's our management team, and we're with us tonight. My general manager and Paul Brown, and our CFO, Miss Esther Patterson, along with two of our store managers. Now we're going to introduce them to you in the end of the briefing. Here it is. Here's the tail of the bottle. I like to discuss this, and if our friends from Tryon Palace were still here, I would point out that you'll notice that we come across very well with the state of North Carolina, $3.7 million in tax money that comes out of our operation. It goes directly to the general fund. Then you'll notice some of those other disbursements down there. This year we're going to disperse nearly $1.25 million to the county of Craven. And yes, you see your money there as well, along with Havelock and Vanceboro. Little Vanceboro, since 1947, has not had much of a distribution, but this year they were going to get some money, and they were very happy to receive it. Our other funding goes to law enforcement. We pay for our own law enforcement. We don't try to burden the cities and towns in which we're in. We have a contract with alcohol law enforcement, ALE, along with the Craven County Sheriff, and between the two of them, provide the security for the store. That, my friends, is why, I have to knock on wood here, since 1935, we have never had an armed robbery in Craven County, nor the city of New Bern. Now, just last week, to give you some idea, small section of my hometown, Boston, Massachusetts, which is a very small city, 5 package stores had armed robberies, and 3 others had serious crime. 8 out of 40 package stores. Doesn't happen in New Bern, North Carolina. We say that with a lot of pride. That goes back to our people we have here, but it also goes back to our security, wonderful store managers, and the people we have working for us. So you see the tail of the bottle there, and you can see that we made some records this year, and one of the questions is, is it covert? Did covert have to do something like this? Well, I will have to tell you that, as you well know, this board painfully knows as well as I do, that we had a lot of our restaurants and bars and grills that were closed down for months, just starting to reopen. Some are still closed. So in Craven County, we do about 18% of our business by liquor by the drink, the establishments. And that was seriously hampered this year. But we have a great sales team. We have a well-known reputation in the state of North Carolina. We do about 10% of every bottle we sell is not from someone from Craven County. We have people from other parts of the the state and other parts of the country that visit our stores. So here's something that will interest you. This is our New Bern stores. I wanted to show you what it was for the two New Bern stores. This is where they're going, and if you're in the business world, these are trends that you like to see. We're very fortunate, and that's what I said about the two ladies that we have with us, that they manage great stores. Our associates are some of the best, if not the best, in North Carolina when it comes to familiarizing our customers with our product, and they do a great job, and that's reflected by that. And I know that several of you are business people, and you'd like to see those trends in your businesses for sure. Now, the things that we have done this past year, and again, I focused it on the New Bern store. You'll notice that we've made some real serious investments in our two stores, to include several of you who talked to me about it, walking down by the Front Street and noticing that we had a lot of work. And we'd like to thank the city for its cooperation in that. It was very important in permitting. The preservation folks were very helpful. And we fixed that flaw that we had in the building. Now, you can see how much it cost us to fix that thing. And we know our friends over at the Chamber of Commerce and other neighbors are wrestling with trying to come up with funding to fix their problem on that. But now you notice it still looks very attractive. It's but more important than just looking attractive, it's very safe. It's very safe. That store was very close to actually falling down in the middle of Front Street. It was separating quite badly, but we've fixed that. And then we made a lot of investments up in our Glen Burnie store. I get comments from everybody how wonderful that store looks and how it has a lot of appeal. And we're going to continue making those kinds of investments in our New Bern stores to keep them up in the front. And you'll see the other aspects that we did. And I'm very proud that along with us making some money, that we gave that to our employees. It's on them. We no longer, just 4 years ago, sadly, we were a minimum wage employer. We've moved that up quite a bit, and now we're professional. We pay our people, beginning to pay them a living wage, and of course we belong to the state system of retirement and so forth. So it is a good job. We provide good jobs to New Bern folks. And so we're going, and you can see that we're continuing to look forward in the years to come, and we're looking forward to another great year. We will tell you that we're having a kind of a crazy year. We go by the same economic reviews that the city of New Bern uses for its tourism, 2 to 3% increase with everything going on. Yet we're doing much better than that. But we hope that we can come back to you next year and provide the same kinds of benefits that we're going to provide this year. If I could ask my two store managers to come up, they would like to. We'll give this to the city manager in the view of the if that's all right, Mr. Mayor. I think it's only fair. These are the two women that made those numbers very, very possible. Ms. Brooke, Ms. Teresa, they did the work. They did the labor. So if I could ask you two ladies to give the check here too. Yep. Done like a good city manager. He's going to make sure that one goes. We've already provided the city and other disbursements, Mr. Mayor, $27,000, along with this check for $68,000. That's $95,000 to the city and to the citizens of New Bern. And remember, we never use 1 penny of taxes, either city or county tax or state tax, not 1 penny ever since that store was put in here in New Bern, the number 3 store in North Carolina in 1935 with Mr. Zaytoon down, the grandfather, the children that live right down the street here. I was our first customer, and he gave the first 12 cents to the city of New Bern in taxes. So, been a long time since it's 12 cents. We're up to $22 million. So, very, very proud that we've given to the county and to the cities. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions, board?
I have a question for you, Chip.
Yes, ma'am.
So you talked about a new store in Bridgeton.
Yes, ma'am.
So rumor has it that the new store in Bridgeton will close the downtown store. Will that impact the funds that we get by only having one store in our city limits?
Let me explain, madam, that oddly enough, while the board may make recommendations, I'm going to pass this one up to Mr. Mark, that our friends up at the Board of Commissioners, we make a recommendation for openings, closings, store hours, and it's done after a public hearing. So I'm going to say that again, done after a public hearing, ma'am. And if we would ever even think about closing the store, that public hearing will ask you if we can have it here.
So, but my question would be if it does. I'm just saying if it does, so we know how to lobby effectively, that would decrease the amount of money that we receive. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
If we don't have a replacement, if we didn't put a replacement store.
In the city limits.
In the city limits, that's
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask you a question? I heard the complete opposite. I heard that the Bridgeton store was going to close the James City store. In fact, I've got a lot of gentlemen in Carolina Colors that want you to move it closer to Carolina Colors.
So I'll tell you that part is probably not. We looked at Carolina Colors, we would have loved to have moved up there, but $600,000 for a half-acre of land was just a little bit beyond your Craven County ABC board, and then to put a building up there, it didn't make any business sense, frankly, to be honest with you. No, it makes good business sense with the growth that's going on in New Bern. I'll say this, and probably at the expense of my job here, but it makes perfect reason. When we did a study here just a few years ago, the study was done by ECU that was a national award-winning study, I might add. Clearly said that we may want to be thinking about putting a store on 70 north, 70 east, west, and 17 north and south. You can see the wisdom in that. And in at least one community store in New Bern. Ratio proportion is somewhere around 17 to 20,000 population, a store, between 17 and 20,000. So do the math, ma'am, and you can see New Bern's pretty close to 2 stores.
Yeah, it's true. I would urge my fellow aldermen to start lobbying your county commissioners right now, because I'm afraid the downtown will go with the onset of the restaurateurs and whatever being able to order now and not having to do like they have done in the past. It'll make it easier to get from any store, but I think it's such an asset in downtown New Bern. You've done an amazing job in your restoration or the renovation of that building. It looks great, it feels great, and we do have a lot of visitors that come through, and of course the people on boats, it's easy access for them. I understand business is business.
You've convinced me, madam.
Business is business, and I understand about the bottom line, but if our aldermen want to see our revenues continue, we want to make sure we have a store in our city limits. So.
Chip, how is the methodology of how the disbursements, is that governed by state law?
Yes, it is. We're under the Pasquotank law of 1935, and at that particular time, it was a 90-10% split between the counties. So you can just about take, your money, and that will tell you that Craven County got 90%, and you got 10% of the money that was generated here.
So the individual cities breakdowns based on where the store footprint is located, that's dictated
That's
by
correct. So
state law?
James City being in the county, so that's 100% goes to Craven County. Havelock, of course, gets 10%. Vanceboro gets 10%. You get 10%.
Well, you do know that there's a voluntary annexation that you can always petition the city to take in your new property if you build one somewhere else. So keep that in mind.
I'm just a humble servant, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure coming here. I always get insightful questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This time, let's go to item number 9.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 9 is a presentation from Director of Parks and Recreation, Foster Hughes, on our Parks and Recreation rec card. So he's going to share a PowerPoint presentation with us tonight, so I'll turn it over to him at this time.
Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. I'm excited to announce our rec card program, and if you want to know what a rec card is, basically it's what you see up there. It's not unlike what you'd get at Food Lion or Harris Teeter or Planet Fitness or any other retail store. And I've used this in other municipalities I've worked for, and Mark and I actually talked about this right after I got here, and we were planning on implementing this program right at the first of the year, and of course our friend COVID came and just created havoc for everything. But what can this rec card be used for? Well, the best thing is to access our recreation facilities. So now if you go to the West New Bern Recreation Center, or when the pool is open you go in there, you can basically scan your card. You have to register, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But it also helps determine whether you're charged a city resident rate or a non-resident rate, because when you do register, our program is tied into a GIS program, so it tracks exactly where you live. And so that determines if you live in the city limits, you get the city resident rate. If you live outside of that, you get the non-resident rate. And it's also easier to register for programs. You have a specific code that's special for you, so it's easier to go on to our Parks and Recreation website to register for programs, or if you come into the Recreation Center to do something. And so you'll see a picture up there, and that's at the West New Bern Recreation Center. We have a scanner there. All you have to do is come in, scan your tag, and the picture to the right actually will show your picture to the staff that's working, and it'll give your name, and if everything's good, then you're welcome to go into the facility and enjoy whatever amenities you'd like to. So how can you get a rec card? Well, it's easy. Come by Parks and Recreation Administration. It only takes a few minutes to fill out an application. We'll take your picture. We'll give you rules and regulations so you'll know exactly what you're getting into. Or you can go by the West New Bern Recreation Center, and in season you can go by the New Bern Aquatic Center. We're working now to also have it to where you can register on our web page. So we're working through a few kinks with our rec desk page, but we should have that soon. And then how much does it cost? Well, it's free. If anyone wants to come in, no cost for this. If you damage your card, we'll replace it, but if you lose it, there will be a $2 charge to replace it. And when I've done this in the past, we've really seen that people hold on to these things pretty easily. When we have things like summer camps, we'll usually give lanyards out to kids, so they'll just put it around their neck, that way they can hold on to it a lot better. So why are we implementing this program? Well, it's easier for us to track attendance. When I first got here, when staff told me we had 2,000 people that came through the recreation center on any given day, they were just pulling it out of their hats. I mean, they had no way of actually knowing. They were guessing. So since that time, we've implemented a program where they're actually doing tick sheets for each hour of the day when people come in. Now, we know when you come in, we know exactly how many people have come in, we know the time of the day, and so it helps us determine trends for staffing and things like that. It also verifies that participants have a waiver on file. Previously, if you wanted to come into the recreation center, shoot basketball or play cards or play pool or anything, if something happened to you, we didn't have a waiver on you. Now, anyone that comes into the recreation center, we do have a signed waiver. And it also verifies that participants have received a copy of our rules and regulations. In New Bern, we're pretty fortunate folks that use our programs, follow our rules and regulations, and so this is just another way to help out. So, do you have any questions? Who's ready to get a rec card?
Foster, do you, will this be like downloadable onto your phone? Because so many people, this day and time, our youngsters, everything is on their phone. They don't even have their credit cards, everything. And so will it be downloadable that they can just hold their phone and scan that?
I think it will be in a future update with our provider rec desk, but right now it's not available.
Okay.
But I'm sure it will be coming.
Foster, is there an age limit that you're going to administer these cards to?
Anyone that comes into the center for our programs will have access to that. Traditionally, if it's a 3-year-old child, we don't really give anything to them because they won't lose it. They'll lose it. But with our recreation programs, normally kids 7 and under do not come into the facility unless they're accompanied by an adult. So those that do come in by themselves will have a card.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So when do we just have to come by and we can all get signed up, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Stevens, let's go to item number 10.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, item number 10 is a public hearing and consideration of the board to adopt an ordinance to amend Section 15-79 for major subdivisions of the land use ordinance. Staff is proposing an amendment to this section of our code. The proposed changes would require 3 18 by 24 and 1 digital copy of final plats be submitted to development services, and that complete applications with estimates for performance guarantees be submitted to the department 3 weeks prior to the next regularly scheduled meeting. That's pretty much kind of a synopsis of what it is. Mr. Davis is here. He's going to provide some detail as well as what I've just given you. And there's a memo that's included in your packet from Mr. Ruggieri, the Director of Development Services. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Mayor, members of the board, these are minor administrative changes to the code just to help developers and engineers understand the process more clearly so that staff gets the documents it needs in time to facilitate the process through Planning and Zoning Board. I want to bring to your attention Section 3, when it comes time to entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance, if that motion would exclude Section 3, that's a section that we discussed internally and decided to hold off on pursuing that through the Planning and Zoning Board. So the motion would be to adopt the ordinance after the public hearing, exclusive of Section 3.
Okay, anything else at this time? Okay, at this time I'm going to open a public hearing. Anybody like to come up, make any comments, ask questions, you're free to do that.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Okay.
Mayor, if there's not any questions, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the amending Section 1579 to the Code of Ordinance for major subdivisions, excluding Section 3 as listed.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Would like to mention one thing under discussion. I certainly hope that the developer companies and others that are involved in this are fully aware, will be made aware through our website and what other means necessary to make sure they are aware of these changes. This time, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Odham?
Yes.
Before we go to item number 11, Mr. Davis, if you would just come back up on and ask you a question about, as I discussed with you today, if you would make the Alderman aware and the public of when I am presented maps to sign, examples of why I legally must sign them as the mayor of the city, and legally reasons that I might not sign them if an alderman has a problem with something on those maps. If a dynamic component of drainage and other issues have not been addressed, or if there's a situation where connectability is not available, those type of things that might have been omitted on the plans, those might be some things that I might decide not to sign it if I legally did not have to. But at the same time, just when issues come up as we see future traffic counts and the need for roadway systems and all to be improved, that's not necessarily a legal reason I can not sign.
Yes,
so
sir.
Could you elaborate on some examples?
Yes,
of
sir.
both
And that
for
loops
the
back
Alderman
into
to know?
Alderman Astor's issue from the last meeting. As we discussed, our current subdivision ordinance is an objective process where you as the board establish all of the criteria that is required to subdivide a property. That includes streets, signage, lot sizes, drainage, every issue that's involved in a subdivision, including traffic count. Once those criteria are satisfied, staff and the Planning and Zoning Board verify that subdivision plan checks all of the boxes. Once that is done, there's nothing the city can do to stop that subdivision. That's the first step. On the backside, once we have a preliminary plat that entitles the developer to build the subdivision, the burden then falls on staff to make sure that the subdivision is built consistent with those plans and city specs. That's all of our utility departments and public works. Once those are certified, the P&Z board approves that final plan, and then, Mayor, your job is to simply sign the plan. Nothing wrong with asking a lot of questions to make sure everything has been built consistent with those objective standards. May well be from time to time something is overlooked, or weather or time has changed something that requires it to be brought back into compliance. But once P&Z has signed off on that plan, approved the plan, then your job is simply to sign it. There's no discretionary authority that you don't like it, or you would prefer it to be different, or you would like a bigger or smaller retention area. That's all set by the code, and there we are. So the moral of the story is your job is to stay ahead of these issues, and if you're perceiving that there are issues that need to be addressed, we need to go into the code and change those issues. We can't do them discretionarily as we go along.
Well, I mean, the board and we don't do this every day of the week, and that's why when these plats are ready to be recorded or signed, I try to sit down with the engineer and the alderman in a particular area to make sure that anything that they have concerns about, connectivity particularly. You could have a situation where it would be a public road but not a city maintained road, and then a new connected development's going into that, and then the prior development you're going to connect to, but the performance bond is expired or not been checked and balanced, and those type of issues come up. So knowing if I knew that, I don't know if I legally still have to sign it or not. That's where I would come and talk with you. If
Exactly.
I knew that an error was made on that plat, and the board didn't catch it and approved it, I'm not going to sign it. I'm going to ask it to go back through just like a deed of correction on a deed. If there's an error in a deed, I see that quite often.
Yes, sir.
And
yes.
you do a deed of correction. So I assume there's a procedure if somebody makes a mistake approving something that I've got to sign.
If staff
that
has,
maybe an alderman brings to my attention.
yeah, if staff has approved a plan and checked the box when it should not have been checked, then we can go to the developer and say, this was done in error, this was a mistake, you've got to comply with this rule. But it can't turn into, I would like, or I think this is better, or wouldn't this be great? You can certainly say that and ask that, and the developer can do it to be accommodating, but it's not a legal basis not to sign the document.
Well, I think the main thing I'm getting to here is I think it would be really good on behalf of everybody involved if at some time the staff, be it from Development Services or Public Works, if in a particular area of the city that involved an alderman, just have a little sit down and review over what's coming down the pike. And so at that point, I know you have Development Services, you have staff departmental review, but typically the alderman and myself were not included in that. And so if there were issues that the neighbors or whatever have contacted the alderman about, it'd be a good time to let that be known prior to an engineer going to loan.
Yes, sir. And again, it's It's a tough one because it gets back into citizens like a subjective process. The law likes an objective process because property rights are objective, and a developer needs to understand what they can and cannot do as a matter of legal right.
I think the Alderman I think the Alderman should keep it on an objective level. I'm
Yes.
not asking for it to be
Sure.
on a subjective level.
Sure.
Any
But,
questions?
and the solution to that is to attend. I would encourage everyone to attend. If you see a project in your ward, attend the P&Z meeting. The process has always been the same. Some of you may recall in the last 6 or 8 years, the process was the same up until the very end when it was all over, and that final plat used to come to the Board of Aldermen for approval. And that turned out to be very challenging because your citizens and constituents would come to you and they would not like something. Well, at that point, the cake has been baked, it's all over, and the answer is typically because that's the law. But when it got to this stage, it created a lot of problems because folks logically think it's a political process. Why would it be in front of you if it wasn't political? And the legal answer is it wasn't political, it was objective. So what we did 6-8 years ago is we kept that process at the P&Z and sent it back to them because they're the ones who approved it in the first place that allowed it to be built, and they're the ones who are best to proof it and make sure that it was in fact built consistent with the plan. So the best way to catch those issues is to go to P&Z on the front side when you see something coming up in your ward and be involved in that phase.
Well, I can tell you, speaking as an elected official, I typically do not do that because I want to be fair. I don't want to in any way preclude. I want to be a builder-friendly city. I want the city to grow, as do the aldermen. And we don't want to double jeopardize a developer having to come right back through the city, Board of Aldermen. So I think the process is okay. I just think that this is good discussion, and Alderman, if you see something going on in your ward, I'll be more than glad to meet with you and an engineer or whoever, make sure that you have a full understanding of what you're fixing to get, because Alderman Kinsey, as an example, has quite a few things in his ward that have not drainage-wise worked out to his constituents' satisfaction. He's had to do a lot of work on that, haven't you, sir?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I understand. Yes, sir. I understand.
We have to be.
Okay. Let's go to that next item, number 11.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 11 is a resolution to fund the COVID-19 nonprofit grant program. As we discussed at our last meeting on October the 6th, that was actually our work session, $50,000 will be utilized to fund the grant program for nonprofits in the city of New Bern to aid with their COVID-19 efforts to assist citizens who have been impacted. The program will be administered by a third party, and the terms and conditions of the program will be established with respect to the application process, qualifications, etc. Grants will be issued at $1,000 each. Any unused funds will be returned back to the city. It's on a first-come, first-served basis. The applications, its intent will begin on Monday of next week. That is contingent upon us finalizing our agreement with BevCorps, which you'll see in your packet tonight, which you have that all of you received at your table, is the resolution to fund this, as well as, and I will say Alderman Bingle has put forth a great deal of effort in putting together this, along with the support of Alderman Best and Alderwoman Harris, to put together the guidelines and policies for the nonprofits as far as the application process, what is required of this application process, and then ultimately where to submit this information and who's going to be responsible for it. So there is, on the last page, it's kind of the responsibilities of the party. I reached out, parties of the City of New Bern as well as the third-party administrator. I reached out to BevCorps, who is also administering the Swiss Bears program, the loan program that they have for small businesses. I spoke with Elaine, who is their director, and she was very interested in this, but she did need to get confirmation from her board that they would be allowed to do this for us. But she felt fairly confident of that, and so she said she would be able to find out from her board in a couple of days whether or not they would be able to do that. So hopefully, if the board chooses to move forward with this application tonight and this process tonight and the funding, then I will reach out to her tomorrow, and she could take that to her board, hopefully to find out the yes or no by the end of the week. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know, Ms. Bingle, you may have a few things that you want to say, but I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
I guess I want to start out by thanking Alderman Harris and Alderman Best. We met for about 2.5 hours on Friday and kind of worked through this, and we feel the document serves the purpose that was originally intended. We wanted to make this easy to apply for, easy to understand, and easy to administer, and hopefully we've done that. My couple of questions to the city would be, how quickly can we get this out to the public? Can we put it on our website? Those were the things that were going to have to be managed that are not included in this document, but would be the responsibility. I believe it said the city, agrees to, put it out there and to advertise using Bevcorp's logo for marketing, that it's out there.
I think it's probably important just from an advertisement standpoint to if we send this out to make sure that the people know where to send it to.
Correct.
So it would be my hopes that we would have this finalized by the end of the working week this week. So that we can start at Monday. That would give them the address and where all they need to send the information, so forth and so on, once we get the details ironed out with Bevcorp if they want to move forward with this. If not, then we've got to kind of figure out, I guess, something internally that we're going to do. But they seemed very, very positive about moving forward with this. So upon doing so, it would be my expectations that at that point we would take on the marketing of it, which means putting it on our website, putting it on CTV3, putting it on all of our social media outlets, as well as emailing the board so that you can share it with constituents, as well as sending it to the Chamber of Commerce so that they can distribute it through their nonprofit council. That would be my initial intent. If the board has any other contact that you wish for me to send them to, I'll be more than happy to do that.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I just also wanted to thank Alderman Bingle and Alderman Best for supporting the vision in regards to creating this grant program for COVID-19 for nonprofits that have been affected and they're able to impact the community. I think this is a great step, and I'm just really excited to hear the results when we get the information back on how many nonprofits we were able to assist during this time.
Thank you.
The only other thing we do need to mention and speak about that Alderman Best and Alderman Harris and I were not aware of, in talking to Bevcorp, there would be a fee for their services to administer that, and I believe it was 2%?
I'm not aware. She didn't give me a final number, but she indicated to me, because when I spoke with her, Swiss Fair, I knew of the knowledge of how theirs was being administered. It was a 2% fee for whatever their amount was. So she didn't feel that it would exceed that 2% number. But I don't know what the final number is. I'm going to leave that up to her. I don't think it's going to be excessive in any means. But ultimately, I guess the board needs to decide. We've got $50,000. Does that fee for service come out of the $50,000?
That's what I was going to ask. We need
just
to
the
decide that.
devil in the details about what I would want the board to give me some direction on.
If it's 2%, I would hope that we can set aside the fee outside of the $50,000 so that we have the availability, the funds for people to apply up to the $50,000. So if we can support paying the fee out of the general fund.
I don't know, or do it'd have to come out of a line item, so it'd have to come either out of community development or something like that. So, and again, without knowing exactly what it is, we just need to give some direction to the city manager.
Okay, well, if there's no more discussion, I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution to fund the COVID-19 nonprofit grant program.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Attorney, is there anything else that we need to include, like the general provisions or anything in this motion?
No, ma'am. At some point, I think you're going to direct the city manager to enter into an agreement with Bevcorp to administer the program. That's kind of separate and apart from this resolution. This resolution just creates the program and sets forth the guidelines as to how to implement it. I think city manager is going to deal with actually getting it funded and deal with engaging with BevCorp to actually do the administration agreement.
So does that need to be a separate motion? Or does that just implied by doing this?
That's implied by doing it.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, motion seconds and further discussion. Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odham.
Alderman Odham.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries on. Mr. Davis, before we go further, on that last item, we did get the deletion of that section 3 as you wanted.
Yes, sir.
Is
Thank
that
you.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Was that, Madam Clerk, is that the way that read? Okay, great. Let's go to item number 13.
Just so I'm clear here, because I kind of needed some direction on the $1,000, and it was so. Am I going to take it out of the $50,000 to administer the program, or do I need to find the $50,000 in some line item in the budget?
Take it out of the $50,000, and if it interferes with the last person applying, we'll address it then.
Yeah. I think that's because we don't know how many people are going to apply.
Yeah,
So
just take it
the
out of
ability
there.
to fund 50 nonprofits is there. We don't know that all of them will apply. So let's look at it at that point.
Is that what you need?
Well, I heard her say something different, and
Is
nobody said
everybody-
No, I
anything,
think
so I
you
just
said the
need
same
some
thing, right?
direction.
No,
Yes,
she
is
said
everybody, I'm
it's-
good with that. How about the rest of the board?
Yeah.
Can we reevaluate?
Whatever we have to do to make it work. You're going to
Yeah.
take it out of the 50,000, that's fine. If we can help 49 nonprofits, that's fine.
Thank you.
I say we're going to reassess and look and see how much we'll know by a certain date, how much, and I think that's a good move. Okay.
Mayor, I may have missed this, and I'm sorry if I did, but did we get a motion and a second approval on item number 7? And do we need one? I assume we do. It's a proclamation.
Well, it just said presentation, so I think we approved it at our last meeting. If you look at our last meeting, I think it was in the consent agenda. I think it was.
It
Is
was
that-
approved at the first meeting in September.
Yeah, on the consent.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking balancing things.
No problem.
And he tests my brain every now and then, too, and it doesn't always work.
Okay, we through with that one?
Yes, sir.
We good? Everybody understand? Mr. Stevens, you got good direction on
Yes, sir.
that?
Yep,
About as good as you can get, huh?
got it.
All right. Let's go to item number 13.
12.
12.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 12 is a resolution approving a settlement and limited mutual release with Pike Engineering LLC. During the installation of a new transformer at the Trent Road substation, a dispute arose regarding control system wiring diagrams developed by the utilities engineering consultant. The errant wiring diagram cost $18,143.18 in damages to utility equipment. Repairs have been completed and the equipment is in service and operating appropriately. The proposed agreement settles the dispute and provides that the utility consultant pay the cost of the associated damage. There's a memo in your packet from Mr. Bashar, the Director of Public Utilities, and he's here tonight answering questions.
You good with it, Charlie? Yes, I'm satisfied. Well, come on up if you want to say something.
Yes, I'm
You look like you want to say something. Go ahead.
I'm satisfied with the settlement.
Is that normally the procedure on something like that? Is that more of an indemnification for the Pike Engineering?
They wanted the agreement in place that formally settles the matter, and I believe it has been settled. All that they need to do is pay their contractor that they had fix it.
Okay.
But just to be clear, if something happens in the future because of this reasoning, they're not liable, correct? That's the purpose of the settlement.
It does not settle the whole project. It settles this particular piece of the control system.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution approving a settlement and limited mutual release with Pike Engineering LLC.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes?
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odham.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 13.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 13 is consideration of the board to adopt an amended resolution approving a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program. On the 25th of August 2020, the board adopted a resolution approving a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program in the amount of $24,995. The grant is actually $25,000 even, and an amendments resolution needs to be adopted to reflect this corrected amount. There's a memo in your packet from Chief. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mayor, in the spirit of governing, having to do all this for a $5 clerical error, I'll make the motion that we adopt an amended resolution approving a grant from North Carolina Highway Safety Program.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Let's have roll call, starting with Alderman Odham.
Alderman Odham.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 14.
Thank you, Mayor. And to Alderman Odham's point, I just wanted to point out as well that in certain instances, close enough for government work is not a correct statement. Thank you. Number 14, the board is asked to consider adopting a resolution to accept ownership and maintenance of Richard Court. A request has been received for the city to accept ownership and maintenance of Richard Court, which is located within Pinecrest Estates. Public Works has performed the inspection and confirmed that the street has been constructed to meet the city's new street design standards. There's a memo that's been included in your packet from Mr. Montaigne, our Director of Public Works. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board have questions?
No questions, Mayor. I make a motion to adopt a resolution accepting ownership and maintenance of Richard Court.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey. Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odham.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 15.
Thank you, Mayor. Our final item tonight, number 15, is consideration of the board to adopt an ordinance to amend Chapter 70 of Traffic and Vehicles. The ordinance amending Chapter 70 will achieve the following, which is, number 1, change Nunn Street, which is a 12-foot street, to a one-way street and remove the existing stop sign at the intersection of Nunn and Main Street. 2, reduce the speed limit along Old Airport Road between Tyler Ryan Trail and the bridge that is located near Stonewall Circle from 35 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. This is something we discussed in one of our previous board meetings. And then 3, designate both sides of South Front Street along the loop behind Trine Palace as no parking zones. There's been some issues with safety of traffic going around that circle, especially with a lot of people fishing around the Trine Palace circle there. They're parking on the road, which makes it difficult for vehicular traffic to ingress and egress that area. So there's a memo in the packet from Mr. Montaigne. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, does the board have questions? Was one of those in the redevelopment area? The new
yes,
Nunn?
None in
I think
Main
none.
Street, yes.
Yeah.
I know there was some concern.
Mayor, I was curious. It says that Nunn Street, I don't even know what ward that is, but it says it's being changed because it's not wide enough. Is that a situation where we should fund widening that road, or?
The request was brought to us to evaluate it, and we did it. The road there is 12 feet wide. It is actually a 12-foot paved road in between the George Street spray grounds and the residents on the other side of the road. There's not enough room there to widen that to 20 feet or 18 feet or 24 feet wide as it is. So we've made a recommendation that we change it to a one-way street, which would then, we've actually gone back and talked to some of the residents, looked at all the aerial photos, kind of see which way the traffic is going on a regular basis, by the way everybody's parking, and we've chosen to keep it one way in that direction.
Okay. Thank you.
So you've actually done a study and
Yes, ma'am. I think Alderman Harris brought this to our attention 6 weeks or so ago.
I think if it's in there, it's probably in my ward, but nobody brought this to my attention, so I was unaware of it. If you say so, then so.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I would like to thank my colleagues here for helping the fine people of Evans Mill to agree to reduce their speed limits to 25 miles an hour. I'd like to also thank the police department for the fine enforcement that they have been doing out there. A lot of comments from the residents. And that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the ordinance to amend Chapter 70, Traffic and Vehicles.
I second that.
And I also like to ask if there's any way that we can put one of the lighted signs up out there saying that the speed limit's been reduced to 25. I think the sign's already out there anyway. Maybe we just should warn everybody that it's been reduced to 25 miles an hour. Thanks for the help out there. I appreciate it.
I also have a question then, Matt, with the Tryon Palace, no parking in that loop area there. Are we going to be placing signage, and how are we going to notify people that, and I assume the police department will know this, so they'll be monitoring it?
Yeah, we'll get staff tomorrow. Sometime by the end of the week, we'll call on the locates and get the signs put up there for no parking. But just to clarify, that's always been a no parking. Originally, South Front Street was called Tryon Palace Drive, and the ordinance referred to it as Tryon Palace Drive. So this is really just cleaning up the ordinance, because now we're taking out Tryon Palace Drive, putting in South Front Street, and then we'll get the signs put back up either later this week or the beginning of next.
What about the speed limit signs, Matt? When do you think you might be able to get there?
We'll call in the locates wherever they're going to put them in. So you're talking about 3 days, so about same time period. It'll be the very end of this week or probably Monday of next week.
And just for everybody's clarity, where possible, we're going to try to utilize existing poles specifically so that we don't have just signs everywhere. But ultimately, specifically on the no parking area behind Tryon Palace, just for the visual aesthetics of that, being that you've got the water frontage and everything there, we'll try to utilize existing poles where we can.
Wouldn't it be better to like yellow line along that area there?
I'd prefer to handle it with signs initially, and if we continue to have problems, then we can look at that, just because painting, there's a lot of maintenance and continued perpetual maintenance in painting, stuff like that. But that might be a secondary step if it continues to be bad in parking the area.
Yeah, Alderman Bagel, I think talking with the attorney here, for enforcement purposes, you would need some type of sign.
Right, I agree.
Okay, so I'm going to say it's as simple as taking the 35-mile-an-hour signs down and putting the 25-mile-an-hour signs
If there's
up.
one right there at Tyler Ryan where the speed limit changes, that's the key to that.
Yeah, because we just changed it to 35, so I think there is one there.
Okay.
But
Then
whatever,
yeah.
thank you.
Then yes, it is that easy.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the motion? Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odham.
Alderman Odham.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Let's go to appointments. Alderman Bingle.
None tonight, sir.
Alderwoman Harris.
No, Mayor.
Alderman Astor.
None tonight, sir.
Alderman Kinsey.
No, sir.
Alderman Best. Appointments.
None.
And Alderman Odham.
No, sir.
Okay, attorney's report.
Mayor, members of the board, just one item to bring to your attention. A number of you have reached out to me with great frustration over the last few months regarding derelict vessels in the Trent and Neuse rivers, and everyone's looking for the silver bullet as to how we get them towed away or moved. And I repeatedly explained to you that there is no silver bullet when it comes to those vessels, generally speaking, unless they are blocking navigable waters. I know Foster has reached out. He's involved with a coalition of eastern cities and counties. Everyone on the coast and waterways is very frustrated by these vessels, especially given the storms that we've been having recently. Has made the problem much worse. Florida has been dealing with this for a number of years, given the hurricanes down there. I was mentioning to one of you today that I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Florida, their legislature adopted a statute to deal with these kind of pre-derelict vessels so that local governments and their wildlife officials could inspect boats to try to catch them before they become so dilapidated that they're just abandoned. I read articles back and forth, but it seems to be helping in some respect. I don't know that we have a good solution. Beaufort has its own local bill. I've lost track about how excited they are about their results. I don't know that they're totally thrilled with the results they're getting, but it's something. All I can tell you is that a lot of smart folks are doing some head scratching, trying to figure out how to deal with this. But you're dealing with a combination of personal property rights, federal maritime law, and local government law, because you guys control the jurisdiction out of the city out into the center of those water bodies. So you've got 3 regulatory bodies that can control that, tied up with the personal property rights of the person who actually owns the vessel. So we're dealing with it, but we don't have any great answers, unless the only answer I can give you is if the vessels are touching our property, if they're tied to a park or any of our ramps or piers, we can deal with that ultimately. But beyond that, we don't have any good answers other than to take taxpayer money and pay to have them removed or disposed of.
The one we talked about this morning at Union Point, I noticed some folks own it today, and I think that one's been there.
Good.
It's moored for over 24 hours, is best I know. We've crunched about 3 of them.
Yes, sir.
Right? At least. And if the state of North Carolina was a partner in this and gave us a receiving area somewhere, 20 acres somewhere centrally located for us to go take these things, the city or town that gets known for doing that is the one that's going to get more of them. Because I think,
that's a great point.
As in the case of one of them,
yeah.
I think it's out there because they found out that we crunched a couple of them up, and
right.
So the amount of money to collect it and tow it, if there were somewhere to take it, is more money than getting a dumpster
for sure
and getting an excavator with a thumb on it and crunching the thing. So I don't know, but again, I don't want to be known as the city that
the boat graveyard city.
Yeah, I don't want to be the boat graveyard, but there's 2 of them right now that I'm aware of.
Yes, sir.
So, anything else legally?
Yes.
Thank you. City manager's report.
Nothing to report tonight, sir.
Under new business, Mr. Hughes, Foster Hughes, would you come up and give us an update on, is October 23rd is your date, the rock quarry, what was the date on that?
Over at Marietta Park, where do we stand on things? So I will let you know that we opened the main gate to vehicular traffic. It was about a week and a half ago. We currently have restrooms, shelter, we've done some landscaping, we've got an ADA canoe kayak launch as you come in on the right side where you can get out into the canal that goes out to the Neuse River. The Parks and Recreation staff has basically spent a good portion of time removing a lot of the asphalt and concrete that was stored out on the site. That's where we're working on a parking lot right now and getting ready to install our largest shelter, playground, and restrooms, and that's in the area where our swim beach is going to be. So they're working on that and anticipate the shelter being completed within about 6 weeks. And we're also working on the trails right now also.
Okay. Any questions pertaining? Thank you, sir, for that update. New business, starting with Alderman Odham.
None tonight, sir.
Alderman Best.
Yes, I do. I have one thing. Mr. and Miss Sampson are home. They are progressing slowly, but they're not accepting any visitors, of course. And I just want to keep her and her husband in prayer and her whole family in prayer. Secondly, over the weekend I was contacted by a local pastor here, Pastor R.J. Logan, and he and I talked briefly. He wanted to make me aware of the funding that's available through HUD, through the in North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency. It's a program that was established by Governor Cooper, and of course a lot of you, I'm quite sure, have heard of it. It's Rebuild North Carolina. So there's funding out there. It's a lot of funding out there to help homeowners that was affected by Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Matthews to repair, reconstruct, or elevate their homes. I mean, this is free money. The website is a very user-friendly website. I'll give the website's name out. It's rebuild.nc.gov. The program, the Rebuild North Carolina program, is at a point to now where they have funding available and they want to use this funding. So I think this is coming at a very good time and I know I have a lot of people in my ward that's not back in their homes. They're doing repairs. So this would really, really come to their aid and help them. So what I wanted to do, I've reached out to some representatives from the program, Rebuild North Carolina, and we're trying to get everything scheduled so that I can have them to come and do a presentation here, if the board so allows, to present this information to our citizens. I think it would be a tremendous help to our citizens.
Totally agree, that'd be great.
So if I can possibly, I'm waiting on some feedback, try to get it on the agenda for our next board meeting, if the board allows.
Yeah.
I definitely support that.
Yes. And also, let me put this piece of information out there before we get to that presentation from representative from Rebuild North Carolina, that we have a local office right here in New Bern on Broad Street. It's 417D Broad Street, where our citizens, you can contact the phone number, and that phone number is 833-275-7262. You can call, schedule an appointment. They will contact you back and they will bring you in for an appointment, and you can go ahead and start your application process. So hopefully that will help expedite the program as well, if you go ahead and get in there and get your application in. But I do look forward to the representatives coming and presenting this information to our citizens and to us as well.
Awesome. Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Alderman Kinsey.
No, sir.
I would like to, under new business, mention that I really appreciate Mr. Woods coming up tonight, Mr. James Woods, and I'll resonate what he said, and that is, I think he was holistically talking about throughout the city. I would say to the board that, the discussion last meeting with Alderman Kinsey about a situation in his ward, it just the more and more, I thought about it after the discussion. It just, to me, 2019 was the year of the elevator. Anyway, Alderman Bingo, in your leadership, we finally
got it.
I think we're there. I'm about 9 or 10 months late into 20. So I would dare not say anything that would get in the way of that elevator. So for the remainder of the year, I'd like it to be the year of the sidewalk program. I really appreciate what Mr. Wood said, because I just would love the Alderman to think about within each ward a certain amount of money in addition to the sidewalks that are budgeted this year. And I know that there are places in every ward where, because of the shoulders of the road and the infrastructure in place, it's difficult to do sidewalks. There are other areas. What I'm trying to say is you could probably put threefold the amount of sidewalks in some areas of your ward that you could in other areas that are just got all kind of easement and encroachment, all kind of issues. The main thing that I continue to see concern around New Bern and talking with the residents, like Mr. Woods, is getting our children safely to the schools in New Bern and to our recreation facilities. And more importantly, right now, is workforce development on First Street and our community college. And so, Mr. Kinsey, if every alderman in the ward got $50,000 apiece for the year of the sidewalks, I'd be lobbying you hard to get a sidewalk connected to that 8-foot sidewalk you've already got on Windburn to get it to the college. That's the kind of thing that, would just be a godsend for that area to get Colony States and other areas to be able to get to that college. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So, you're a great orator, sir, and you speak loudly, and so I join in your concerns that it is a problem throughout New Bern, not just one area. Yes, sir.
I like to say that Mr. Montaigne, he's been very instrumental in calling me, working with me, trying to find many ways to get that sidewalk to the community college. that's something that he does along with working with me on the ditches. So he's working real hard, he and his staff. So I guess once that moment comes, he said he'll let me know. So he's working real diligently trying to find the funds to do that.
Okay, great. Okay, Alderman Astor.
I just want to say that I agree with Mr. Woods that we definitely need to get some sidewalks in the Pembroke area along the road out there. It is a narrow road for people to be riding, especially children to be riding bicycles on. But more importantly, I think it's important that we try to connect that community with the Volt Center so you know, the people could use and utilize the Volt Center. Other than that, I don't have anything, sir.
Oh, y'all gonna lay it on me because I have a laundry list tonight. So
Oh, no.
unfortunately, we have a lot going on in the first ward. I do want to ask. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, Alderman Dingle, I missed Alderman
okay.
Harris.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Alderman Harris.
Alderman Harris.
Yes, I wanted to state I have been receiving phone calls to the street and pictures and stuff, and I wanted to know if Matt would be able to do some sort of presentation at our next board meeting in regards to what could be done in Pembroke, because I know at one point it was either gutters or sidewalks, and so I think if we have a presentation so everybody that may not be able to come to the meeting or see it to have an understanding of what can possibly be done in Pembroke, because I think getting sidewalks and repairing the streets in Pembroke is long overdue, and I feel like we do need to allocate some extra funds to be able to revitalize the Pembroke community as well. So I didn't know if that would be possible, Matt.
Well, he's kind of giving it one of them possible looks, yeah.
Sure.
Alderman Harris, did you have anything else?
I didn't hear his response.
This is a city manager. We'll make sure that it happens.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing is early voting starts October 15th. Don't forget to vote. That's all, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Alderman Dingle.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ruggieri, I've been contacted by some residents, of course, a developer in the Queens Point River Station area about what's going on with height and building or whatever. So I would like to ask for planning and zoning to review the issues, the three overlays. So the residential waterfront overlay, the river station overlay, and the general R6 height statute or ordinance that we have, because they all intersect right there at that triangle. And so I would like for P&Z to review that, look at it, and try to deal with it, because probably, from my understanding, we might need to end it right there at Queens Point. It's all kind of intersecting there, and it's causing a problem with this development. So I don't know how we want to handle it, but it's been brought to my attention, and I'm confused about people who are raising their houses, the heights. One's grade, one's sea level, so I think we need to uniform it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Alderman Bangle. And thanks for bringing height up again. It's been at least 5 years since we fought that battle before. So, no, you are correct, and we do measure height differently inside our height overlay districts, two different ways, for commercial and residential, and then outside the district. So it is something that lends itself to confusion. Add to that, we have an increase in our base flood elevation, which now actually takes away a foot in a lot of cases of overall building height, simply because we measure our building height in our areas outside the waterfront overlay from base flood elevation, from our regulatory flood elevation, which is base flood +2. So just imagine we have a cap, and then we are measuring from here. We just increase base flood another foot. So that's part of the problems that you've been hearing from the developer side. We've also, in the historic district, after Florence, have allowed houses to be elevated outside to get above the base flood elevation. In doing so, some of them have actually tipped up over the height limitations in there, which is reasonable for people that want to spend the money to protect their investment, to protect the historic fabric of our historic downtown, to get those homes out of the floodplain. So we are bumping into a lot of different regulatory kind of barriers in height, and then we have new development in that area of Queens Point and north of Queen. That's kind of new development, and it's getting squeezed in from other areas where around it will be higher, actually, than the new development will be, and they'll kind of be in a little cone. So I do understand the issues, and we'll look at that as comprehensively as we can without, hopefully, turning it into a 18-month
Well,
kind of
that's the
height
concern.
fiasco.
We want to see how we could speed up the process and not,
Yeah.
so, we meet, and then it just delays everybody. We've got people willing to invest in our community, increase our tax base, and I want to see if we can get all parties to the table, get P&Z to look at this. How can we make this a comprehensive fit that would be a win-win, maybe in a lot of cases because of what's going on? I think we need to review it anyway because of the the flood elevation.
Yeah, there's easy fixes that we can do, a couple one-liners to deal with that. In the river station overlay, which alludes to height in terms of stories and not actual height limitations, which is a little
Because I think in the river station it states 2.5 stories.
2.5 to 3, or look like downtown. So
it's too many variables
Correct.
in one close-knit
Sure.
area. So
We'll
if we
look at all
could
that
do
stuff.
that, and Mr. Manager, if you could follow up on that, I did say that we would try to be expeditious on this in some form and not let it drag out too long. So if there's some way we can put this together, and if I could be briefed on this next week where we're at, I would appreciate that. Because I don't want this to drag.
I think ultimately we've got to follow the legislative process to get changes or approvals made, but we can try to expedite it on staff levels as quickly as we can.
Okay, I just understand it might be state, but there's things that we can do.
Yes, ma'am. Staff can look at this, and P&Z is not till next month. So the staff can be primed and ready for P&Z to run some ideas by them. And if it's going to be a multi-step process, at least we might have a chance to get one step resolved as we tackle the whole problem.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then the second thing is, I think many of you are aware that because of COVID and the governor's lockdown on many small businesses, many of the bars, taverns, whatever, have been closed down, and it's been very difficult for them to operate on it. Because of that, we've had a request from one of the establishments downtown, the Brown Pelican, to be able to get some outdoor seating because their footprint inside is so small, it doesn't allow them but to have maybe 4 or 5 people. It would expand it in an outdoor setting. So their back door and back area abuts our parking lot behind the Chelsea, that area, that Hancock Street parking lot. So after 5 o'clock, we don't have leased parking there. But in speaking to this city attorney, they had requested could they set up some tables in that parking lot to use that space to give them some outdoor seating, just like we're doing downtown in the farmers market, some other areas. So the city attorney has advised me that we need to get with, I guess it's the city finance officer, and I'm sorry, Mark, I did not have a chance to reach out to Mary today, and to find out about the leases. Do they actually end at 5, how that works, and then we will bring a resolution back if the board is okay with that to allow them to use that. So can I get some feedback or something from you all? Would you think that would be amenable to this board? I mean, in talking to the owner of this business, they were debt-free in this business and now are in debt up $30,000 because of COVID. They've had to pay rent and other expenses that they had to pay to keep their business going. So I certainly want to do anything that I can to assist. And if this will assist them, I think it's an easy fix. Of course, following all, ALE rules, liability, all that other stuff that we require of anybody in our streets. I would do that. But if that's okay, if you're not hearing anything, Scott, will you go ahead and move forward on trying to get this fixed for me?
And they may have already done so, but I just want to remind you also, Alderman Bingle, of the Swiss Bear's availability of assistance from low interest, zero interest loan to help with those kind of issues with regards to rental assistance.
Right, and they have applied for that. And then the last thing I want to remind everybody, you see a card in front of you. This is my sister's house, and this is our dear Benita Simmons, who is just such a blessing, and she is in the process of renovating a home that was going to be torn down on Roundtree Street, and it's going to be used for women who are just coming out of prison and getting that second chance. Currently, there's only homes for men, and this will provide a place for women. And they are taking contributions because they can't do the active kind of fundraising due to COVID. So you can go to their website, triedbyfireinc.org, and make a contribution. It'll be well worth your time and effort to do that. That's it.
Okay. Any other new business at this time? Anything further? Do we need a closed session tonight? Anything further to come before the board at this time?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say
Aye.
We are adjourned.